Welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS, presenting to you the daily quiz for 24th of December 2022. But before we begin, here is a gentle reminder to join our official Telegram channel. You can do so by clicking on the link given in the description box below or scanning this QR code on your screens right now. Now let us begin and take a look at the first question for today. Consider the following statements with respect to Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee. Number 1. Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee is the apex biotech regulatory body in India. Number 2. It is a statutory body functioning under the Ministry of Science and Technology. Number 3. It has the power to take punitive actions against people or body under the Environment Protection Act. How many of the given statements is or are incorrect? Why this question? This article in the Indian Express newspaper today talks about the recent approval for the environmental release of the genetically modified hybrid mustard DMH11, which has attracted some criticism. In this context, we've picked a question on GEAC, which assesses the proposals regarding the release of genetically engineered products as well as organisms into the environment. See, the regulatory framework for approval of GM crops is covered under Environment Protection Act 1986. And this Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change is the apex body that allows for commercial release of GM crops in India. So GEAC is the apex biotech regulatory body in India and also is a statutory body. This committee is chaired by the Special Secretary or Additional Secretary of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. What are the functions of this GEAC? See, GEAC is responsible for the appraisal of activities which involve the large-scale use of hazardous microbes as well as recombinants in research and industrial production from the point of view of the environment. This GEAC also assesses proposals regarding the release of genetically engineered products as well as organisms into the environment, and this includes experimental field trials as well, right? Also note that this committee has the power to take punitive actions against people or body, and this right is under the Environment Protection Act of 1986. So it is mandatory to get the approval of GEAC before genetically modified organisms and products derived from them can be used commercially. So coming back to our question here, statement number 1 here is correct. Statement number 2 is incorrect because while it is a statutory body, it functions under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Statement number 3 here is correct. Therefore, the right answer to our question would be option A, one statement only. Moving on to question number 2. Consider the following statements. Number 1. There is evidence for consumption of millets in the Indus-Saraswati civilization. Number 2, with the consumption of millet, a celiac patient's body mounts an immune response that attacks the small intestine. Number 3, two pseudo millets, buckwheat and amaranth, are a part of the nutri-cereals declared by the Ministry of Agriculture. How many of the given statements is or are incorrect? Why this question? See, this article here has a reference to the International Year of Millets. The UN General Assembly has declared the year 2023 as the International Year of Millets. Worldwide, efforts are being taken to create awareness about the importance of millets, its role in sustainable agriculture, and also its benefit in being a superfood. To meet the growing demands of millets, the Government of India is promoting the production of millet in India through Nutri-Cereals component of the National Food Security Mission. And India also aims at becoming the global hub of millets. It is in this context that we've picked up a question on millets. Now coming back to our question here, statement number 1 is correct. Studies have found that the millets were among the first crops to be domesticated, and also evidences have been found of consumption of millet in the Indus-Saraswati civilization, that is during the time period of 3300 to 1300 BCE. So 1 is correct. Coming to statement 2. Here we need to know what the celiac disease is. See, celiac disease is a chronic inflammation of the small intestine which is caused by an intolerance to gluten. What is gluten? Gluten is a general name for the proteins found in wheat, rye and barley. So when people with celiac disease eat gluten, their body escalates an immune response which attacks the small intestine. So celiac disease is also called as wheat allergy. But millets do not contain gluten and therefore millets are safe for the consumption in the case of gluten sensitivity for celiac disease. So statement number 2 becomes incorrect. In the year 2018, the Ministry of Agriculture declared certain varieties of millets as nutri-cereals. And this was done for the purpose of production, consumption as well as trade. These are sorghum, which is jowar, pearl millet, that is bajra, and finger millet, that is ragi, which are considered major millets. The foxtail, kodo, barnyard millet, little millet and proso millet, which are minor millets. And also in this list of nutri-cereals of the Agriculture Ministry are buckwheat and amaranth, which are pseudo millets. Therefore, statement number 3 becomes correct. Therefore, the right answer to our question here would be option A, one statement only, because only statement number 2 here is incorrect. Moving on to question number 3. Which of the following statements best describes Loya Jirga often seen in the news? Option A, a special type of legal assembly according to the traditional code of the laws of the Pashtun people. Option B, the official decision-making body that brings together representatives from various ethnic, religious and tribal communities in Israel. Option C, skilled folk musicians of the Thar Desert. Option D, traditional tribal law in Afghanistan. Why this question? This article in the Hindu newspaper today talks about reviving intra-Afghan talks and how India as well as Russia can help in reviving these talks. And in this article, there is a reference to Loya Jirga. Let us understand what this Loya Jirga is. Loya Jirga, which translates to the Grand Council in Pashto, is a mass national gathering which brings together representatives of various different religious, ethnic as well as tribal communities in Afghanistan. This Loya Jirga is a highly respected centuries-old consultative body and it has been convened at times of national crisis or to settle national issues. In Afghanistan, a Loya Jirga is considered the highest expression of the Afghan people. But please remember that this is not an official decision-making body and its decisions are not legally binding. But unofficially, the Loya Jirga's decision is mostly seen as final. So the most appropriate answer to our question here would be option A. Moving on to question number 4. Arrange the following islands in the southwestern Pacific Ocean from south to north. Number 1, Vanuatu. Number 2, Solomon Island. Number 3, Fiji. Number 4, New Caledonia. Choose the correct code. What is the context? Sitiveni Rabuka has been confirmed as Fiji's 12th Prime Minister. And this article has featured in today's Indian Express newspaper, hence a question on the islands in the Pacific. In our question, we have the islands in Melanesia. This Melanesia is a sub-region of Oceania in the southwestern Pacific Ocean. Now when we take a look at the map here, we can see that as we go from south to north, we find New Caledonia first, then comes Fiji followed by Vanuatu and finally Solomon Island. So the order will have to be New Caledonia first, followed by Fiji, then Vanuatu, and finally to the north, Solomon Island. So the right answer here would be option A, 4312. Now let us take up a previous year question from Prelims paper 2016. Given here are communities sometimes mentioned in the news and in the affairs of which country? Number 1, Kurd, Bangladesh. Number 2, Madhesi, Nepal. Number 3, Rohingya, Myanmar. When we take a look at the first pair here, we see that Kurds or Kurdish people are Iranian ethnic group native to Western Asia. They are in news in the context of Turkey, northwestern Iran, northern Iraq or northern Syria and not in the context of Bangladesh. So 1 becomes incorrect. Now Madhesis. Madhesi is a term used for several group of people that live in the Terai region in Nepal. So 2 is correct. And finally, Rohingya people. Rohingya people are seen in news in the context of Myanmar. They are an ethnic group from Myanmar. So 3 becomes correct. Therefore, the right answer to our question here would be option C, 2 and 3. Moving on to the fact of the day for today, which is Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. Why this topic? There's a reference to this scheme in this article in the Hindu newspaper today and hence this topic for discussion. The Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana scheme functions under the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, and the program is operated by the Department of Food and Public Distribution working under the same ministry. We have seen this scheme multiple times in news during the COVID-19 pandemic. This Yojana was a part of the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan package, and this was launched to help poor people fight the battle against COVID-19. It was initially announced for a period of 3 months in April, May and June of 2020. But later it was extended based on the needs. And it aimed at providing each person who is covered under the National Food Security Act of 2013 with an additional 5 kg of grains for free in addition to the 5 kg of subsidized food grain already provided through the public distribution system. The scheme aimed at covering 80 crore ration card holders in India, that is roughly 2/3 of India's population. One important thing that you must remember here is that the program was operated by the Department of Food and Public Distribution under the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, but its nodal ministry is the Ministry of Finance. The scale of welfare of this scheme makes it the largest food security program in the world. That is all for today. Thank you for being with us. Keep watching and keep learning.